Have you ever stopped to wonder why certain encounters seem scripted before they even happen? Why, in random moments, you feel the presence of someone far away, or think of someone just seconds before they call you? There's something beyond logic behind these coincidences. An invisible thread that seems to weave events, emotions, and people together with a precision that defies chance. But what if this isn't just a feeling? What if it's a fundamental principle of reality? Quantum physics, in studying the behavior of subatomic particles, discovered something unsettling. Two electrons that interact, even when separated by vast distances, continue to respond instantly, even to changes in each other. This phenomenon is called entanglement. But what's truly intriguing isn't just the connection between particles. It's the possibility that this same principle might exist in consciousness. Could our emotions, thoughts, and choices be entangled with those of others? Imagine that when you think of someone, you're literally activating an invisible bridge between two minds. And what if memories, intuitions, even gut feelings are more than emotional coincidences? Maybe what we call spiritual connection or soulmates aren't just poetic metaphors, but reflections of an energetic reality where separation is an illusion. And what if this field that connects everything isn't just around us, but is actually what we are? Ancient spiritual traditions have always spoken of unity. Hinduism calls it Brahman. Buddhism speaks of interdependence. Christian mystics refer to the one body. Every culture, in its own way, has tried to describe what quantum science is only now beginning to confirm. Nothing is truly separate. The question now isn't whether we're connected, it's why we keep living as if we're not. And what has this disconnection been doing to the way we exist? Living as if we're isolated from each other creates a fragmented reality where everyone struggles alone, trying to survive in a hostile world. But when you realize that every thought carries echoes of others, that every action influences more than what the eyes can see, everything changes. Life stops being a battlefield and becomes a field of resonance. And in this field, your frequency matters. What you feel reverberates. What you believe shapes. What if true freedom isn't about controlling everything around you, but realizing you've never been separate from anything? What if connection is the key that's always been within reach, but only reveals itself when you stop searching? What changes when you begin to feel the world as an extension of yourself? Have you ever felt like you're stuck in a cycle you didn't choose? As if something deeper, older, is pulling the strings of your life without your consent? Maybe you've tried to change habits, thoughts, relationships, and still, everything goes back to square one. Why? Because what governs your life isn't what you consciously think. It's what's buried in a silent territory, the subconscious. Imagine the subconscious as an invisible operating system. It's running while you sleep, while you talk, while you believe you're in control. It doesn't argue with you. It simply executes what was installed. And those installations began early, long before you had any awareness of right or wrong. They were programmed through words, emotions, traumas, silences, absences. What you feel today might not even be yours, but an ancient memory still alive inside you. Neuroscience now admits that more than 90% of our daily decisions are made without the rational mind's involvement. And if that's true, then your life is largely the product of programs you never chose. Programs that repeat like echoes from the past, creating a present that feels inevitable. But the subconscious is not a prison. It's a key. The real question is, who's using that key now? Spiritual traditions call this deep layer of the mind the collective unconscious, the Akashic records, the ancestral soul. Modern psychology tries to label it with theories and structures. But no definition fully captures what it really is, because the subconscious isn't meant to be understood. It's meant to be felt, through dreams, through patterns, through emotions that rise up for no apparent reason. It speaks in symbols, in signs, in symptoms. Now think about this. If thoughts can influence particles, as we saw with entanglement, what happens when those thoughts are hidden, repressed, forgotten? Can they still shape the reality around us? The answer might be uncomfortable, but liberating. Because what's hidden inside you isn't asleep. It's active, creating, interfering. And you only begin to reclaim your power when you choose to look where you never wanted to. What would happen if you stopped trying to control what's outside and started decoding what pulses inside? Would the outer world change if you reprogrammed the invisible world within you? Or is everything already waiting for the moment you remember who you are beneath the programming? Imagine two electrons, born together in the same energetic field, vibrating as one, and then they separate. One is sent to one end of the universe, the other to the farthest opposite. And yet, even trillions of kilometers apart, something unexplainable happens. If one changes state, the other changes too. Instantly. No signal, no delay, no apparent logic. They remain connected, as if the space between them no longer exists. This is quantum entanglement, a phenomenon that shatters everything we thought we knew about separation. But what if this connection isn't exclusive to the microscopic world? What if human beings can also be entangled in invisible ways? What if emotions, memories, even thoughts can continue to vibrate between two people, even after silence, distance, or death? Have you ever felt pain that wasn't yours? Thought intensely about someone and suddenly they showed up, sent a message, or appeared in a dream? It's not just coincidence. It could be resonance. When two consciousnesses connect deeply, something more than psychological happens. There's an exchange. An energetic code is imprinted, and separation stops being real. We're talking about invisible bonds that defy conventional physics, but make perfect sense to anyone living with an open heart. Ancient traditions already knew this, though in different words. In Egypt, it was believed that certain soul bonds spanned lifetimes. In Taoism, there's the invisible red thread that ties two destinies together. Carl Jung called it synchronicity. Today, we call it vibration, connection, energy. But the name doesn't really matter. What matters is that science is beginning to confirm something the spirit has always known. Being far away doesn't mean being disconnected. So think about it. If particles can stay linked after just a brief interaction, how many connections do you carry inside you right now? Who are you energetically entangled with, even if you no longer see them, even if you no longer speak? Emotional entanglement can be a blessing or a burden. Because as long as you're attached to a frequency, that frequency is attached to you. What if you could consciously choose who or what you want to stay connected to? Is it possible to unentangle from ties that no longer make sense? Or are there connections that, once made, never stop vibrating within the soul? Have you ever truly listened to your body? Not from a clinical perspective, not from fear of pain, but with the curiosity of someone who knows it's trying to say something? Every tension, every illness, every impulse, nothing is random. The body speaks, but in silence. It responds to the frequencies you hold, the emotions you repress, the thoughts you repeat. And behind that physical response, there's something subtler, a field of living information. In quantum physics, all matter vibrates. And if it vibrates, it interacts. Your cells, your blood, your skin, it's all organized energy. But organized by what? The mind? Emotions? The subconscious? You are, in every moment, the result of interacting fields. Your body is only the visible part of an invisible equation. When you feel anxiety, it's not just mental. When you feel sadness, it spreads through your skin, your breath, your digestion. Nothing is isolated. Everything communicates. What if the pain you feel today is a reflection of something your mind hasn't wanted to face? What if that constant fatigue is actually inner resistance disguised as tiredness? Many spiritual teachers say that illness begins in the subtle field and only then manifests in the physical. Louise Hay used to say, "Every illness is a message from the soul. The body doesn't attack, it signals." And understanding that hidden language may be the deepest step toward true healing. But it's not only illness that originates in this field. Vitality does too, expansion, intuition. Some people radiate such strong energy that just being near them feels healing. That's not magic, it's frequency. It's coherence between mind, emotion, and body. Neuroscience now talks about heart coherence. When the heart is aligned with positive thoughts and stable emotions, it sends signals to the brain that balance the entire system. It's as if, when the body is truly heard, it begins to conduct a new inner symphony. The question is, how often do you disconnect from your body to live on the mind's autopilot? Most people live only from the neck up, ignoring the rest of the body as if it were just a vehicle. But the body isn't a passenger, it's a mirror. And the more you ignore what it shows you, the more distorted your self-image becomes. Listening to the body is listening to the soul. It's translating vibration into presence. What if what you feel in your body is actually a message from reality asking to be read? What if every symptom is a bridge to something you haven't yet understood about yourself? Is healing the body really about starting with matter? Or is the secret in the invisible field that sustains it? Have you ever had the strange feeling that something already happened, even though it seems impossible rationally? A déjà vu, a dream that comes true, an inner warning that avoids a tragedy. All of this challenges us because it defies a belief we've taken for granted, the idea that time flows in a straight line from past to future. But what if that's not true? What if time is more like a field than a road? Modern physics already accepts that time is not absolute. On quantum levels, cause and effect can reverse order. In other words, the future can influence the present. The now can shape the past. Einstein once said, "The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." If that's real, what does it say about your story? About the decisions you believe you made? About the paths you haven't yet taken? In spirituality, cyclic time, eternal returns, and simultaneous lives have been spoken of for millennia. What we call the future may already be happening on another level of consciousness. And what seems behind us may, in truth, be an active frequency. It's as if time were a spiral, and each point on that spiral can be accessed, reframed, transformed. The question is, do you know where you're vibrating right now? There are already therapies that treat past traumas as if they're codes accessible in the present. The brain doesn't distinguish between real memory and vivid imagination. In other words, your mind can rewrite what it lived. But what if that's not just psychological? What if reprogramming the past is actually a way to alter the probability, lines of what's still to come? What if every conscious choice made today echoes into directions you don't even know exist? When you repeat patterns, you're stuck in a kind of time. When you awaken, you break that line. Have you noticed how some moments seem to last forever, while others disappear in seconds? Time is not what the clock shows. It's what your perception creates. And if it's created, it can be expanded, stretched, deepened. Your past is not a prison. Your future is not a fixed destiny. Everything can be touched. Now, what if what you call intuition is actually a memory from the future trying to reach you? What if time isn't passing, but opening up before your consciousness? Is reality really as predictable as they say? Or are we just beginning to learn how to dance with time? Have you ever just known something without being able to explain why? As if a quieter, older part of you already knew the answer long before you asked the question? That's not thought. It's not logic. It's intuition. A kind of intelligence that doesn't speak in words, but in pulses. That doesn't come with arguments, but with sudden certainties that defy reason. For a long time, we treated the heart as just a biological pump, a muscle obedient to the brain's command. But now science is beginning to reveal something deeper. The heart has its own electromagnetic field, and it's dozens of times stronger than the brain's. It doesn't just feel, it perceives. It intuits. It connects to information the rational mind hasn't even processed yet. The HeartMath Institute, for example, shows that the heart reacts to future stimuli before they happen. How is that possible? If everything is connected, as we saw with entanglement, then the heart may be the antenna that picks up on these connections before the mind understands them. It senses vibrations, environments, intentions. It's like it's tuned to a subtler frequency of reality. When we ignore this voice, something inside us shuts down. When we trust it, the path opens. Intuition isn't magic. It's non-linear perception. It's the echo of what's coming, beating inside your chest. So why do we keep silencing this inner wisdom? Because we've been trained to trust only what's visible, measurable, provable. We were taught to obey the analytical mind and to distrust our feelings, as if the invisible were less real, as if what can't be proven has no value. But intuition doesn't seek proof. It seeks resonance. It doesn't need to convince. It only needs to be heard. Think about the most important decisions in your life, the ones that changed everything. How many of them came from perfect logic? And how many came from an unexplainable feeling? Maybe the soul speaks first through the heart and only then through reason. And maybe that's why, when you listen to intuition, you feel peace even without certainty. Because somewhere, inside, you already know. What if your heart is actually a hidden map, trying to guide you through paths your mind can't yet see? What if intuition isn't just an instinct, but a memory of something you haven't lived yet? Are we learning to think too much and feel too little? Have you ever wanted something so intensely it felt inevitable? It wasn't just desire. It was a silent certainty, as if the universe had already responded before it even happened. That's not coincidence, it's vibration. True faith isn't hope, it's a way of collapsing possibilities. But how is that possible? And what does physics have to do with it? In the quantum world, everything exists in potential. Each particle can be in multiple states until someone observes it. The observer doesn't just witness, they influence. The mere expectation already alters the outcome. In other words, belief shapes reality. Now think about this in the context of your life. What if your belief isn't just an emotional state, but an active force that determines which reality will manifest in front of you? Spirituality has always spoken about the power of faith. Jesus said, "If you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move,' and it will move." And for a long time, this was treated as metaphor. But what if it's not? What if faith is a vibrational key that activates hidden states in the quantum field? An inner certainty so deep that it reorganizes external possibilities. In that case, the miracle is no longer supernatural. It becomes natural. For those who vibrate in coherence. But here's the dilemma. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you deeply believe. And often, what we believe is hidden behind pretty words. We say we trust, but we feel fear. We say we want, but we doubt. And the quantum field responds to feeling, not to statements. So the real question isn't what do you want, but what do you truly believe when no one is watching? Neuroscience also points in this direction. Studies show that the mind reacts to what it believes as if it were already real. Hormones, impulses, behaviors, everything aligns with the dominant belief. So, if you believe you're limited, your body will respond with blockages. If you believe you're abundant, it will start acting as if that's already part of who you are. Faith isn't about religion. It's about coherent vibration, about aligning thought, emotion, and action with a silent truth pulsing within you? What if your outer world is just a reflection of what you've been holding inside? What if faith isn't about asking, but about remembering who you are? What would you create if you stopped doubting? Have you noticed how everything seems to go wrong on days when you wake up feeling off? Traffic gets worse, people seem ruder, problems pile up. But on other days, everything flows effortlessly, almost magically. What changes? The world, or you? The truth is that your emotions are like invisible commands sent into the field of reality. Every feeling is a vibration, and that vibration writes. Imagine that the reality around you works like an intelligent mirror. It doesn't just reflect your appearance, it reflects your frequency. When you feel fear, doubt, or lack, it's not just inside you that something contracts. The field around you adjusts, responding to that frequency with events that vibrate in the same tone. Likewise, when you feel deep gratitude, enthusiasm, or peace, the world seems to conspire in your favor. Coincidence? Or a code at work? Quantum physics already understands the universe as a sea of possibilities in constant collapse. But what collapses a possibility into reality? Observation, yes, but also emotion. Emotions are more than internal reactions. They're frequencies of creation. They're like vibrational paints that shape the invisible. And that's why there's no use thinking positively while feeling negatively. The field responds to coherence, not appearance. Spirituality has always intuited this. Ancestral tribes danced to heal, cried to release, laughed to attract abundance. It wasn't just expression, it was vibrational alignment. In all cultures, the most powerful rituals involved intense emotion, because feeling is the language of the soul. And when the soul vibrates in tune with what it desires, the universe listens. The secret isn't in wanting, it's in feeling as if it already is. So ask yourself, what have you been feeling most often? Not what you say, but what truly vibrates behind your actions, your silences, your stray thoughts. Because that's what's shaping the contours of your reality. And the good news is, you're not stuck in yesterday's vibration. At every moment, you can rewrite your emotional field, and with it, completely change what the world gives back to you. What if the key to transforming your life isn't understanding more, but feeling differently? What if your emotions are the secret code that unlocks doors effort alone could never open? What would happen if you dared to vibrate as if you already were everything you're trying to become? Have you noticed how certain thoughts just show up without you calling them, as if they're floating in the air, waiting for a mind to catch them? Most of us believe we think on our own, that our ideas are born inside our heads. But what if that's not exactly true? What if your mind is less of a thought factory and more of an antenna? In physics, electromagnetic waves are everywhere. They carry information, sounds, images, even if we don't see them. That's how radios work, Wi-Fi, satellites. Now imagine, if thoughts also have frequency, as neuroscience suggests, couldn't they work the same way? Could we be constantly tuning into ideas that already exist in a collective mental field? Carl Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, an ocean of symbols, archetypes, and shared memories. But what if beyond that, there's a mental space around us where all ideas circulate, just waiting for a mind with the right frequency to receive them? And what if when you think of something, you're actually picking something up? Something that already exists but can only manifest through your current vibration? That would explain why certain people have the same insights at the same time, in different places. Why you pick up someone's mood without them saying a word. Why certain ideas arise when you're calm, in silence, far from the noise. In those moments, your mind shifts frequencies. What used to be static becomes a clear channel. You're not inventing thoughts, you're translating vibrations. Now the question is, Are you choosing the mental station you're tuned into, or just listening to what the environment imposes? Because the world is full of frequencies: fear, doubt, conflict, rush. And if you're not paying attention, you start vibrating at the same tone without realizing it. But awareness changes everything. When you choose what to think, you start broadcasting instead of just receiving. And the field around you responds to your new transmission. What if most of the thoughts you carry aren't even yours? What if you could choose what to align with, like changing the station on an invisible radio? What would you start to pick up if you learned to listen? To the silence between thoughts? Are you sure that what you want is truly yours? Or could it be that without noticing, your desires were planted in you? From a young age, we're exposed to ideas, beliefs, images, patterns. Everyone tells us what success is, what true love is, what the ideal life looks like. But what if behind those ideas, there's something deeper and invisible influencing our choices? Egregores are collective thought forms, energetic fields created by groups that share the same vibration. When many people believe, feel, and repeat the same symbols, these energies condense into a kind of psychic entity. And the most curious part, they gain strength and autonomy. They begin to influence anyone who enters their field, even if that person has never heard of them. Religions, political parties, social movements, brands, even fandoms, all create egregores. They're fed by attention, emotion, and intention. The more intense the devotion, the stronger the field. And when you come into contact with one of these frequencies, you start to want what it wants, to think what it thinks. The egregore doesn't force, it influences, gently, silently, until you no longer know where you end and the collective begins. Philosopher René Girard said that human desire is mimetic. We want what we see others want. But what if, beyond conscious imitation, there's also energetic imitation happening? Could your will be a reflection of something bigger vibrating around you? Are you dreaming your own dreams, or carrying out the desires of a collective frequency you absorbed without knowing? And if you're feeling lost, dissatisfied, out of place, maybe it's not because you're failing, but because you're following a desire that was never yours. An egregore can empower or imprison. It can lift you up or drain your vital energy. The key is to recognize the field you're connecting with, and if necessary, disconnect. Break the illusion. Silence the outer noise to hear again what's vibrating within. What if the greatest prison isn't bars, but the desires you never questioned? What if freedom means, first of all, relearning how to want, with awareness? How many of your dreams would still be yours if the world stopped whispering inside your head? Look around you right now. Everything seems solid, concrete, reliable. The chair you're sitting on, the floor beneath your feet, the body you live in. But that solidity is just a well-crafted illusion. Modern physics reveals a startling fact. What we call matter is for the most part empty space. The atoms that make up everything we see are made almost entirely of nothing. The idea that nothing is the opposite of everything no longer makes sense, because quantum emptiness is a place of immense potential. In it, particles appear and disappear in the blink of an eye, as if reality itself were breathing. This vacuum, far from being an absence, is the field where everything is born and where everything returns. It is the cradle of creation, even if our senses still insist on calling it nothing. What if this same invisible space also exists inside you, between thoughts, between heartbeats, between the emotions that come and go? The inner emptiness that so many try to avoid with distractions, noise, rushing around, might actually be the same space from which new realities can emerge. Have you ever wondered why the deepest ideas come in silence? Why, when everything stops, Something new begins to emerge. The entire universe is energy in motion. Even stones, seemingly still, vibrate at imperceptible levels. Nothing is truly still. Nothing is truly solid. Everything pulses, everything vibrates, everything is in constant flow. What we see is just the condensation of a denser frequency, but behind every form is the invisible field that supports it. And if that's where everything originates, then that's where the real power lives. Spirituality has always pointed to this, calling it ether, prana, spirit, divine field. Science is now starting to give it other names, but the principle is the same. There's more in the invisible than we ever imagined, and it's in that apparent void that the source of creation lives. The power isn't in the form, it's in the frequency. And what we call reality may be nothing more than a reflection of what's silently vibrating behind it. What if what you call real is just a temporary density of something much more subtle? What if the void is actually the language of the universe, waiting for you to learn how to listen? Could it be that we're searching for answers in forms, when the secret might lie in the space between them? Have you ever thought of someone, and minutes later they sent you a message? Or found a phrase in a book exactly when you needed to hear it? These small coincidences that feel like scenes from an invisible script have a name: synchronicity. But what do they really mean? Are they poetic accidents, or clues left behind by something beyond logic? Carl Jung said that synchronicity is the meaningful coincidence of two or more events with no apparent causal connection, but with deep significance for the one experiencing them. In other words, the universe responds to your vibration, with signs that may seem random, but that speak directly to your consciousness. It's as if life is in constant dialogue with you, but in a symbolic language that only the heart can decode. In quantum physics, entanglement shows that everything is interconnected, even across great distances. And what if this interconnection also extends to the events in your life? What if every thought, every emotion, every decision is influencing realities around you, activating encounters, awakening messages, attracting answers that haven't even been asked yet? Synchronicities would then be reflections of an entanglement that works in silence. But what happens when you start to notice these signs? Something shifts inside. You stop seeing the world as a cold mechanism and begin to see purpose in the details. The butterfly that crosses your path, the song that plays at the exact moment, the stranger who says something that answers a personal question. Everything begins to carry meaning, not because the world changed, but because you started tuning into a different layer of perception. The truth is, synchronicities are not rare. They're everywhere, every day. But few people see them because most are too distracted, too anxious, too trapped in linear time and rigid thinking. When you slow down, quiet your mind, and open yourself up to feel, you begin to notice that you are being guided. Not by an external force controlling your life, but by an invisible intelligence responding to your deepest vibration. What if each synchronicity were a point of connection between who you are and what's ready to unfold? What if these signs are subtle invitations to trust more in the invisible? Is the universe truly silent, or do you simply need to relearn how to listen? Have you ever stopped to observe what you do every day without thinking? The way you wake up, what you think when you open your eyes, how you react to small frustrations. All of this, repeated day after day, forms an invisible structure that shapes your life. We call it routine. But in reality, they're rituals. And rituals are forms of energetic programming. The difference is that, most of the time, you're programming the field. Without even knowing it, every action repeated with emotion and intention becomes a silent command sent to the universe. Waking up in a rush, complaining about traffic, worrying about lack of time, all of this creates a vibrational signature. And as we've seen, the quantum field responds to your frequency. Now imagine repeating the same thoughts and emotions for weeks, months, years. That becomes a stable pattern. a reality that reaffirms itself every day. But the power of ritual can also be conscious, breathing mindfully upon waking, giving thanks before even getting out of bed, quietly visualizing how you want to feel during the day, choosing words with more intention, creating small gestures that align body, mind, and spirit. This isn't superstition, it's alignment. It's placing your vibration at the center of your routine instead of being at the mercy of external chaos. Ancient traditions knew this. Every people, every culture created rituals to mark the start of cycles, protect energy, elevate consciousness. It wasn't the gesture itself that mattered, but the state of presence it invoked. The flame of a candle, the sound of a bell, the act of writing by hand. These are symbols that awaken attention and intention, two fundamental ingredients to shift personal vibration and, with it, the surrounding field. The point is, you're already ritualizing something. The question is, what? If every morning begins with tension, every meal is rushed, and every thought revolves around fear, then those are the rituals you're offering the field. But if you change the gestures, even subtly, reality begins to respond differently. Because the universe doesn't just hear what you say, it hears what you repeat with energy. What if the life you're living is the exact reflection of the rituals you unconsciously repeat? What if changing the tone of one gesture were enough to rewrite the invisible code of your reality? Is the miracle really far away, or hidden in the details of an ordinary day? When was the last time you felt silence? Not the kind that appears between songs or when people go quiet for a moment, but true silence. The kind that seems to expand the air, suspend time, and touch something inside you that has no name. Most people try to run from it, as if silence were absence. But it isn't emptiness, it's origin. Silence is where reality begins to breathe. On the quantum level, before any particle arises, there is a pure state of potential, a field with no form, yet full of possibilities. Inner silence works the same way. It's where the subtlest vibrations can be felt. The noise of an agitated mind interferes, like static in a transmission. But in silence, everything becomes clearer. The invisible comes closer. What once felt far away begins to reveal itself. Great. Intuitions, flashes of clarity, the clicks that shift a destiny, rarely come during moments of euphoria. They emerge in the in-between, in the pause. In the instant when the mind stops trying to understand. That's when consciousness ceases to be noise and becomes antenna. And in that state, it's not uncommon to feel something vast, as if the universe itself is about to speak. Not with words, but with presence. But cultivating silence is almost a revolutionary act. We live in a world that glorifies haste, instant answers, constant stimulation. Sitting in silence can feel like a waste of time, but time isn't something to be spent, it's something to be lived. And to live deeply is only possible when we learn to be silent, because only in silence can we perceive what's always there, but hidden by noise. It's not about meditating perfectly or trying to stop every thought. True silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of attention. It's that moment when you stop fighting with the mind and start hearing what it's been trying to show you without shouting. It's when the space between one thought and the next widens, and something new finds room to be born. What if what you've been searching for, answers, clarity, direction, isn't in the next book, the next video, the next piece of advice? What if it's already inside you, just waiting for you to be quiet enough to hear it? What might emerge if you dared to fully inhabit the silence? There's a quantum physics experiment that unsettles even the most skeptical scientists. It's the double-slit experiment. In it, a single particle, an electron for example, changes behavior depending on whether or not it's being observed. When unobserved, it behaves like a wave, existing in many places at once. But when observed, it collapses into a single position. It becomes a particle, real, tangible, as if it were aware of being seen. Now take a deep breath and think about that. If matter changes behavior in response to observation, what does that say about you? What if, beyond being a body walking through the world, you are also a vibration pulsing through it? You are, at the same time, form and frequency, particle and wave, physical presence and vibrant consciousness. And the most mysterious part of all, maybe you already know this, at a level your mind hasn't yet reached. Spirituality speaks of the higher self, the multidimensional consciousness, the light being. But perhaps these ideas are simply different attempts to name the same phenomenon, the realization that you are not limited to what your eyes see in the mirror. There is a part of you that observes all of this happening, a part that feels before emotion, that intuits before choice, that vibrates before form. It's not somewhere else. It is the field within you. To live identified only with the particle, with the body, with social roles, with visible results, is to live in limitation. It's to act as if you're separate from the whole, as if you're a powerless observer of a reality already written. But when you remember that you are also a wave, everything changes. You begin to see yourself as an active part of reality, a consciousness capable of collapsing possibilities through intention. You become a co-creator, not just a passenger. And the most challenging part is that this remembrance doesn't happen through rational thought. It happens through feeling, in the moment when you sense expansion, as if something much greater has begun to flow through you. It's subtle, but undeniable. It's like a forgotten memory that returns without warning. And in that moment, you don't need to understand. You simply know. You know that there's something within you that was never born and will never die. Something that observes, vibrates, creates, and knows it is alive.